All right, I'm back for part 3 of, excuse me, the emotional festering wounds, and how most are woefully unprepared to uh, address the issue, especially most practicing therapists, um, and how throwing pills at these emotional festering wounds are not treating the wound. And why do I call it an emotional festering wound? Well, because these wounds are open when we're children, and they never get the proper care that they need. They never get receive the proper treatment. We never receive the proper treatment that we need, and they're left to fester, and we're left to try and treat these wounds on our own with, once all the help we've been given runs out, the lack of support, type of support that we're given runs dry, especially in an area like this. This area only has 12,000 people in it. It's an area that's sorely in need of medical, mental health care and treatment. A lot of people's issues are downplayed, or we're made to feel like it's not as deep, or it's not as bad as we're presenting the issue to be. And what brought this up today is the eviction lawyer. Well, he's not even an eviction lawyer. He was just my pro bono lawyer, who I contacted in July for help with the case, with this eviction case that I'm dealing with. And he's been the only one who's really been constant. I want to put out some a video basically with the video will have the letter that he sent me, and it'll have the audio of the person who was supposed to be helping me, who has lied several times about saying that they were going to help me, or that they were doing these things to try and provide me support that they didn't do. And it's with an area organization, a regional organization in this area that's connected and tied to the Illinois Attorney General's office. And then I'm getting bounced around there too. I've contacted my congressional candidates. One I heard back from, but it was the federal uh, candidate. So because of that, they say they don't really deal with state, you know, and local county area issues. Uh, for me to do that, I would have to deal with the uh, local state government and my district, the congressmen or congress people, and that have been, you know, the representatives in the house in the house people who've been uh, elected here, and they're all white and Republican. So I don't know how that's going to go for me. I got their information. I plan on contacting them Monday. If you're interested in an update on that, I will keep you updated. But to get deeper into what brought this topic up for me is that I keep talking about this 30-pound box of documents. And then every time I mention it, it's like I'm, you know, I'm saying the name of he who shall not be named. Because I feel like, you know, nobody wants to address it. Nobody wants to talk about it. You know, they all just want to say, oh, you have this mental illness, this emotional disorder, and this psychological condition, and all you need to do is take these pills and you'll feel all better, and maybe talk to somebody, and then they'll talk you into forgetting about all the stuff that you went through, and yeah, you've processed through all of the stuff. And I'm like, this has been going on since I was 9, not even 12. 9, it started because that's when I started presenting with what they called ADHD. And if you know anything and you've done any studying on your own, you would know that CPTSD presents in children as ADHD. You would know that. But a lot of people don't. So, there's that. And so I was given Ritalin, so I was misdiagnosed. And I was mismanaged on my medication. I was given unnecessary medication because the medication didn't help me focus. It just stopped me from moving. And it made me feel so drowsy and so sleepy in class. And the teacher would tell me that I need to stay awake. And I'm like, but the medicine is making me feel sleepy. Yeah. So there's that. And so what brought this up is because, and I keep mentioning this because the lawyer, I kept telling him about this 30-pound box of documents, and he kept saying, he kept trying to come at me with this time heals all wounds aspect. Like, is it anything recent in there? And it's like me getting hit with an extension cord from the age of 2 is a memory that is stuck in my head like it just happened yesterday. I remember how that feels. Me almost being murdered by my early onset dementia grandmother when I was 4 years old, because she went from a hanger to an extension cord, and then she was using a mixture between a wire hanger and an extension cord, depending on whatever she could find to get her hands on. And then when I stopped responding how she wanted me to those stimuli of abuse, I had a bed. Because DCFS requires that you have a bed for the child, someplace, a bed for them to sleep in, even if they don't sleep in it, which I did, but I didn't want to. Many nights I found myself up. That's for a different story. So this bed, I was jumping on it. Me and my cousins. My cousins would get me in trouble often. I was always beat on. It's funny how, another aside, it's funny how I was always beat on in the paternal grandmother's house. And then I was always beat on. I was always the one getting beat on in the foster home. And that's a whole nother other can of worms. So I was jumping on this bed, and it was a wooden bed with a wooden bed frame, and we broke the child's bed jumping on it. We both got in trouble. I was without a bed frame for a while. They eventually got me a new one. But for some reason, the paternal grandmother had this, wildly crazy, somehow wonderful idea to herself to take one of the legs of the child's bed, and start using it to beat 4-year-old me, 3-year-old, 4-year-old me. Now, I didn't. Anyway, so how did she almost murder me when I was 4 years old? Well, she had the leg of this child's bed, and this is in the records. And she said in the records, who ratted her out? The aunt that kicked me down the stairs because I didn't want her to leave the house for us, all of us who were vulnerable, which was the early onset dementia grandmother, the developmentally disabled 22-year-old cousin who had the mind of a 2-year-old, and 3-4-year-old me. We were left in the house for days with no food. And the early onset dementia grandmother, when stress got really bad, she would go totally into her dementia, and she would do things like go dig up worms from out the ground in the backyard, and she would fry them in the frying pan. There was a couple times that the fire department was called. That is not in the records. It's not in the records. There's so much that's not in those records. So, but this is at least her beating me. How did she almost kill me when I was 4 years old? One night, she got really mad. They didn't even know she had early onset dementia, by the way. She was really mad, and something I did made her so mad. And so she went to go get she called it a bat. And depending on how she felt, either sometimes it was a bat and sometimes it was a baby bed leg. Okay? And the nail was still sticking out of it. So she was holding it by like this, and the nail was still sticking out of it, and she was hitting me with it. And I treated it like it was a game, and I wasn't good. I would cause her to beat on me. And that's another thing with this trauma. It's like, so anyway, uh, she would beat on me, but this night she was really mad. She was really trying to hurt me, and so, this night she swung it, and she was swinging hard, like she was like swing away, Merle. She was swinging, uh, and this night when she swung, she was trying to kill me, and she was swinging, trying to do headshots, and so she swung, and she was swinging at my temple, and I moved. I turned my head like this, because it was coming from this way. When I turned my head, it split my lip. The nail hit my lip. See that? It's a split right here. Right there. It's in the record. And so that got me taken out because they found bruises from her hitting me with the leg of the child's bed on me. And that was enough for them to move me. And the place they moved me to wasn't any better. And there were people who tried to catch it. And I'm not going to say there weren't people there. There were people who wanted to address. They knew something was wrong. But other people kind of shut them down and was like, no, she's fine. And that happened a lot. People who have been through massive amounts of trauma are very good at masking. We're very good at masking. There's a lot wrong with us, but you won't know it. A lot of the times you see us out on the street corner, on the side of the road or whatever, and we'll be dead or almost dead, and you'll never know it. You'll never know the level of trauma that we survive, only to be failed in every sense of the word by society. There were people who tried to catch it. There was a psychologist, because I had been going to psychologists and having these psychological exam tests done since I was 5 years old. And they all kept saying, she's fine, she's fine, she's fine, she's fine. Hopefully there's other levels of the testing that is done, and like other questions and different things like that, and ways to get, because, if you see a child smiling, happy, and, they're so bubbly and, just excited for life, you're not going to know that on the inside of them, deep, deep, deep inside of them, there's this festering emotional wound that needs to be addressed. It needs debridement. Okay? There needs to be some material cleared off of there. Right? It needs to be cleaned. right? It needs some antiseptic on it. Then maybe you can add a band-aid. So these health mental health gurus and all these people just, slapping band-aids on decades of trauma, and don't even get me started into the generational trauma and stuff like that, and go into that, because there's that too. My mama had emotional festering wounds, and they were just left to fester, and she never was able to get any type of closure on them or any type of healing on them. And something about those eights. I'm not dreading 38, I'm getting ready for 38. But my mama was raped and beaten at 68 years old in a nursing home. This is after surviving so much stuff, including the rape at the beginning of her life. She was raped in the church from the age of 2 years old to 10 years old. And she still went on and saw fit to have children and expose children to this world. Oh, the brother I mentioned earlier that gave me this mark on my head. You see, the 8 stitches right there. He's dead. He's dead, by the way. Left 4 children. Yeah. So, and he had emotional festering wounds as well, or festering emotional wounds. A lot of black people have these festering emotional wounds that, like, we don't even deal with them. We try and treat them like other people do. And when I say other people, I mean white people, because they do the same thing. They go, these pills that are given that are supposed to make us feel better, but they make us feel worse before they feel better. Venlafaxine is supposed to make you feel better. Somebody who, is supposed to be my help and, supporting me and stuff like that, they take that drug. And they say it makes them so sick in the morning. It makes them so sick, but they take it and they find themselves, ready to face the day after 30 minutes of nausea. I'm like, really? I guess if it worked for you and it's better than, trying to face the world sober with no drugs, I understand. I get it. It makes you functional. Makes you able to get through the day. I guess I get it. Because you got a job to do and you got a family that depends on you and different things like that. I don't want something that's going to make me feel worse to make me feel better, though. Like they tried to say the same thing about lisinopril with my mama. Well, lisinopril is made by snake venom. They use snake venom and they make a derivative of the snake venom, and then they put that into powder form, and then they make that into a tablet, and then that's how they get lisinopril. Well, I don't care what it's a derivative of. The derivative of a thing is the origin of the thing. You cannot separate the derivative from the origin. Okay? That's just like trying to separate English from phonetics, the Phoenician language, or the language of the Indus Valley. You can't do that. That's why they have PIE, Proto-Indo-European languages. Okay? And from that came Urdu and Hindi and Sanskrit, which is the written language of Hindi, and Welsh and German and all the rest of the languages. Dutch, all of them. So, if the derivative is the product of the origin, then it's going to have some of the origin within itself, no matter how pure you make it. And my mama isn't the only person here who's been prescribed this drug, who's a black woman, no less, who's been prescribed this drug, lisinopril, and found themselves allergic to the main ingredient. And I had somebody try to argue me down from this, and I'm like, my mama was intubated for almost a year or something like that, and then she was in a rehabilitation center for almost 2 years, all from going into anaphylactic shock and her throat closing up on her. And they had to life flight her from here, this level 2 center, which I don't even know how to freak it's a level 2 center when they got a whole maternity ward that's shut down, and it's basically a Band-Aid station now. And they life flighted her from here to the main campus in Peoria. And they couldn't even take her in a helicopter because it was too bad. It was raining and the wind was whipping around. It was like February, something like that. I'm trying to remember. It was in 2013. I do remember that. And they life flighted her in the ambulance. And she held on. My mama was a fighter. She was a fighter, let me tell you. And we followed. We followed in a car. Me and the baby mama of my oldest brother. So, yeah. People, we need, I know the climate that we're about to enter, that, people don't want to hear about your festering emotional wounds. They just want you to put a Band-Aid on it and shut up about it. Please don't. Oh, another person who has the festering wound. One of my girlfriends. I met her through social media. They are a caseworker, and they feel like they've healed everything, and they're doing good, and they're doing all this stuff, and all these things, right? But they're promiscuous. They can't find a relationship of people, of anybody, well, because they're open in their sexuality, and to me, I don't take that as a healed person. People who are truly working to heal, they want a time to themselves. They want that precious sanctity within themselves. So they stay away from, sexual uh, encounters and things like that. My mother, before that happened to her, she was celibate for almost 30 years. So, yeah, there's that. Uh, I myself have been celibate for 3 years now, strong, and I plan on continuing on into my celibacy. Um, Maybe by the end of this time limit and time period, the man that is for me will have appeared. Hopefully, I've been prepared well enough for him and made ready for him. Um, I got some work on myself I need to do, that's for sure. But even after I do the work, maybe it's not for him to appear because he was already there and he was taken from me. Another festering emotional wound. 4 years old, 4 years old. My friend, Timothy, who was the only one who cared for me. We was both 4 years old. And he didn't care what anybody else thought about me or what anybody else said about me. He loved me. And he took care of me. His parents, something was wrong with his parents too. Like, he was basically with his grandparents as well. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. And so he was always dressed, kind of like, because certain sects, because they have different sects in Jehovah's Witnessing too. So certain sects are, I'm sorry, I'll go into tangents, please forgive me. Certain sects are, they have a dress code and they have to dress a certain way and they have to act a certain way and they have to be a certain way and all these other different things. So he was always kind of dressed like a little businessman and whatnot. Kind of reminds you of Mormonism, but they weren't Mormons. They did and do the house to house thing a lot. So we were just playing outside, and he was Jehovah's Witness, and my grandmother was evangelical. She was an evangelist, and supposedly my grandfather, I don't want to go into all that, but my grandfather was a pastor for an African Methodist Episcopalian Church, AME Church, and he was a wicked man. So there's that. Anyway, in the hills of North Carolina or something like that, North Carolina, South Carolina, somewhere over there. Anyway, from Mississippi, and don't ask me how that's connected. I don't have no idea. Anyway, these are just the snippets of the stories that I heard about my past on my father's side. Excuse me, hold on. God, excuse me for that. I'm sorry. But yeah, so Timothy had, he was so wonderful. He was just, and I know how they parentify children and stuff like that. It's really bad. He was so mature for his age. Even at 4 years old, he would check on me and make sure I'm okay. We're the same age. I'm like, you're doing a better job of taking care of me than the adults who are supposed to be checking on me and making sure I'm okay and taking care of me. Like, so I guess evil couldn't have that. Couldn't have nobody caring about me. So God's the plan to take him from me, because he just made my future too bright for evil. So we were playing. He didn't have any toys. because Jehovah's Witness, you can't have no toys. So I would share my toys with him all the time. And I would share toys, I would share treats, I'd share everything with him. You know, because he was genuine and authentically my friend. He really, truly cared about my well-being. And so I went and we were playing outside with Mylar, whatever type of ball that, the ball that's kind of shiny and kind of like spray paint a little bit looking. We were playing with that ball. We were playing outside. Everybody was outside. It was just a nice spring or summer day. It was a nice day outside for people to be out. There were people sitting on my porch, chilling, doing whatever they doing. The older guys who like to sit on my porch because my older male cousins would stop by, and they was friends with other older male guys on the block and stuff. And so my porch was full that day. And now my house had a porch. His house didn't have a porch. He lived in an apartment. It was a small one of them, like I don't know how to really describe it. It was just like an apartment building, but it only had like 2 floors, and I think maybe 2 to 8 apartments in total. Like there were like 2 to 4 different apartments on each floor and whatnot. And so it's hard to describe the buildings in Chicago if you ain't never really been there. So we were playing outside, and I got kind of peckish, and this was one of the few times that we did have food in the house and stuff. And so I asked him, I said, hey, I want a popsicle. You want a popsicle? He's like, yeah, I want a popsicle. And so I was like, what color you want? And he's like, I want purple. That's my favorite. I'm like, I like purple too. Okay. And I, go inside, and of course the adults are like, what you going in there to get? I'm like, I'm going to get a popsicle for me and Timothy. He said, okay. Don't be running in and out. Because, I'm an 80s baby. 87. So that's the end of the 80s. But they was still, not quite latchkey kid, but, I'm a zennial. What can I say? So, in between Gen X and the millennial. I'm the bridge across the divide of generations, as they say. And so I go in the house and I get, the popsicle. And I was trying to decide, do I take 2 outside? Because I want this whole thing to myself. And I'm like, they probably ain't going to let me have this whole thing to myself. Because they always talking about my weight and how fat I am and all this other stuff, right? And so I closed the door with one pop. It was the one that you could break apart. You got a popsicle you could share, like that. Yeah. So I got one of those, and I started skipping outside because I was gonna share with them. And I get almost to like the foyer, and I hear the sound, and it was the horn beat, and it was the skid of a car. And the cars were always zooming down this block, because it was the block. This was one of those drug infested blocks, but they were still kind of the nice areas. So it was like the grandmas and the grandparents who were taking care of they 18, 19-year-old grandchildren who they came by because the parents weren't stable or nothing like that. And so because the parents was on crack and stuff. And so The drug dealers, their grandparents lived on this block and in this neighborhood, and it was always just like not regarding like the fact that there were children in the neighborhood and stuff like that. So they would always like, you know, in their car, zoom, you know, past the house and stuff like that. And this just happened to be one of those days, and Timothy was just trying to play with the ball outside, and I felt so bad. Um, from that day on, I hated those balls, the little gradient, like because it was like white, pink, reddish type ball. I hated that ball. Any ball that was like that, I hated them. Every time I saw them in uh, the stores, I wanted to puncture all of them. And after a while, I didn't know why I felt like that, but I would still feel like that. You see what I'm saying? And not only did I start hating those balls, anything grape flavored, I didn't really want anything like that either. Like I just started like drinking grape stuff, you know, like in the past couple years as these memories and is this festering emotional wound that I have come back. Okay. And you can forget things, but the memories are still there. And like they leave a profile. And so you wind up like not liking stuff, and you wonder why don't you like those things. Um, for a while, I didn't like eggs, and I didn't know why I didn't like eggs until the memory came up that I was sick, and I had to go to school while I was sick. They didn't take my temperature. They didn't even know what my temperature was. I was like 3 or 4 years old. Uh, didn't care what my temperature was. And well, shit, this happened in the paternal grandmother's home and the foster home. Yeah, I almost died from fever, from being too hot. And because with the foster home, well, hold on. So, so yeah, um, that's the type of wound, that emotional wound that I'm dealing with. I'm weathered, like Creed said, covered in skin that peels and it just won't heal, rusted and weathered, barely holding together. I had that CD, by the way. I love music. Absolutely love music. I thank God for music every day. I wouldn't be here without music, but that's another tangent for another time. So yeah, my friend, the only friend that I had, the only one who I felt like knew me, the only one who saw me, saw me, he was gone. He was gone. And then I had nobody. And then I had a sister for a minute in the foster home. And they're not even my sister anymore. They identify as a man now. So yes. So back to the friend I was telling you about. That is supposedly healed. They feel like they've done their work. Um, but they're promiscuous. I believe they are using drugs. I can't, you know, openly prove that, you know. Can't tell you exactly where they spend their money, where it goes, how much is spent, you know, how much they get from the charity work they do. They work with animals, and they, like I said, they do social work, but the social work they do is for free. They don't like ask people for money if you need help. They're not like that, you know, messed up like some people are. Um, um, but they, you know, they tell me on one of the social apps that we talk to each other on. They tell me about how they get into these relationships, and the relationships they get into are with these emotionally unavailable people. Usually it's a man, because the last couple times it's been a guy. And so I'm like, you know, when I, you know, get the gist of what they're talking about, about the attraction and attraction to the all these, you know, people who are emotionally unavailable, and you know, the pining after them and different things like that, and you know, they want to meet but they can't, and they, you know, misconnections, stuff like that. I say, oh, you know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like limerancy. The word of the day is limerancy. Limerency. Limerancy. Or limerence. What is limerence? Well, let's give you the textbook definition of limerence, and then we'll give you the everyday definition. Okay? Limerence is a noun, and it is the state of being obsessively infatuated with someone, usually accompanied by delusions of or a desire for an intense romantic relationship with that person. And let's do limerence and emotionally unavailable. And they have, I'm sorry, I'm looking stuff up. They have our limerence, for there's subreddit on Reddit for our limerence, if you want to go check that out. And then they have a website called Living with Limerence. And so let's check that out. And it's livingwithlimerence.com. And it's the title of the article is Unavailable LOs. And an unavailable LO is basically an unavailable love object or love interest. And this is from a person. It says, Reader Jado asks, is it possible that a limerence subconsciously chooses the unavailable love object or love interest over and over in my case, Because of the guaranteed outcome of failure, there is actually less risk. And then the person responding, which is Tom, Dr. L, says it's a good question. Tom says, I think the idea behind it is that limerence for unavailable LOs is a form of self-protection, in that the risk of emotional pain is reduced because of the possibility of failure is almost certain. Is this a form of risk avoidance so that the limerent can soak in the emotional stew of obsession without having to face the hard work of sustaining a relationship? Is it a way of avoiding the heartache of a good relationship failing by setting your heart on one that has no chance of success? Dr. Tom, Dr. L answers, it's possible. Absolutely. Choosing an unavailable LO does guarantee that your romantic life is entirely internalized inside of you, rather than exposed to the world where it becomes subject to risks. This sort of evasion may particularly suit introverts, avoidant personalities, and limerents that crave the exquisite agony of rumination and longing that is also reassuringly within their control. Imaginary relationships can achieve a fantasy ideal that is impossible in practice. Okay? Once again, this is livingwithlimerence.com, and the article is named Unavailable LOs, if you're interested in finding it. Now, doesn't that kind of define to you the relationship that my friend finds themselves in most of the time with this person, either their love interest or their love object? The difference is that they have a relationship with them, but they purposefully continue to have on again, off again relationships with this person because they know that the failure, because of this person being emotionally unavailable, is more comfortable than to risk trying to develop an actual working relationship that it seems good but still fails. As my mother said, to break that down, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And that goes into the festering emotional wound. And so I told my friend, I just advised them that maybe they need to do more healing. Maybe they aren't as healed as they think they are. And, they feel like they are. But one thing about emotional healing that is true about that type of healing as it is about physical healing is that you can't rush the process. You can't rush the process. It's, You try and use your leg, and walk on your leg after you've broken it in several places. Come on, baby. It's my cat. So after you've broken your leg in several places and you try, you know, to fix it, it's healing, and you try to use it and like try to push the healing, um, you can do more harm than good, right? Right. That's why, you know, the doctor has the rice method. You rest, you ice, you know, you, I forgot the C word, but the E is elevate, rice. Okay. Um, and you have to follow that regimen for, a number of, depending on the break, a number of weeks, days or weeks or months, even, in order for it to correctly um, set the break straight to heal right so you can walk on that leg again. The same thing in emotional work. Emotional healing takes time. Of course you have to be willing to put forth the effort. But when the tools and the support that you need to do so are missing in the first place, it's like that's, near nigh impossible for you to start, you know? And that's the situation that I find myself in, especially with this festering emotional wound that, I would love for it to just, close up and, go away, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. I don't have to, the memories don't come up anymore. I don't have to think about them anymore, and they're not a problem to me. They're not any more of a hindrance to me, and I can think clearly, and I can, start making a life for myself and my cat, at least, and maybe meet a man, maybe have children one day. And I don't think I want to bring children here, especially with the way that, the mental and emotional health and health in general is going. It doesn't seem to be going in the way that we need it to go as a society. And I mean, you can just take Luigi Mangione as, a case in point of that. And this man had money, and he felt like he was being oppressed, by the medical industry, the medical insurance industry, not even the medical industry. And then, yeah, so, it's not going the way that it should go, that it needs to go. It's, the revolution is this is reminds me of the color revolution. This isn't gonna, we're not, I don't think the revolution that's coming, that is brewing right now, is being fomented properly. I don't think the moves that need to be made are being made properly. And the elite are scared, but they're more scared of us figuring out and finding out what they're actually doing and what they actually have in store for us and how bad they actually plan to make things for us. But that's getting into something else. Let's get back to mental health. So yeah, I don't think the moves that need to be made are being made right now. And definitely not in the way they should be being made at this moment. And so that's why I find myself in a predicament I'm in. Because I thought I had a support system, And I thought I had people who cared, and I thought I had people who were invested in my future and seeing my future progress and seeing me, you know, improve, seeing my life improve. And it's like they always put it back on you. Well, you're not invested. You're not doing right. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You. And it's like I'm not being given the tools to do so. Their tools are there. They're there. No, they're not. That's why the doctor who I was going to see, who I don't trust with my life anymore, was trying to refer me to um, electroconvulsive therapy. Because my issue, the festering emotional wound that I have, is so prevalent in my life. And I'm like, yeah, let's take electrodes and add them to a festering emotional wound, or just a festering wound in real life, and see what happens, and see how that helps. You know, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. This video is over an hour. Um, this is the part 3 of the festering emotional wound theory that I have, and problem and issue that I see in society. Now, what solutions? Well, they have things like EMDR therapy, which is basically you move your finger back and forth, and you think a trained professional does it, and there's one topic you pick, and you know, as you're thinking about the issue or memory, as they're moving their finger back and forth or whatever, you talk about it, and you come up with a different perspective or a better perspective, or you're able to process the memories better and have a better outlook from what you had before you did that therapy. Supposedly, I don't know if it works. It supposedly works for CPTSD and things like that. I would like to try it. There's no place in my vicinity that I can go to try and do that therapy. TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. They use it for people who have major depressive disorder, which is one of the things that I've been diagnosed with. And they use it for people with PTSD too, depending. There's, differing studies done on that, and with differing results. Conflicting. But I would like to try it. It's better than getting shocked and going into, a convulsion, basically a epilepsy, doing that. It's better than that. Especially when I have a history of epilepsy and dementia in my family. My grandmother, the paternal grandmother I keep talking about, she was epileptic, and she had early onset dementia. And you want to cause me to have an epileptic seizure well, and that's part of one of my traumas, because I had to call 911 at 2 and 3 years old for her. And you want to use that to treat me? Really? TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation therapy. I would like to try that. That's not in this area either. This area is stuck socially in about the 1980s, functionally in the 1970s, and anything to do with mental health, they stuck in the 1950s. So that's where we're at. We're about the 90s in this area, and that's where everybody's comfortable. But there was still racism here in the 90s. People were still being called NIGGERS. Because I got called one in 2016. Did you know there are only over 500 sundown towns here in Illinois? Yeah, so I'm going to step down off my little soapbox. I still got one more video to make, but it won't be about this. It'll be about something else. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I do have other things to say about the festering wound of, emotions, the emotional festering wound that we have, a festering emotional wound that many people deal with. I just wanted to put that out in the zeitgeist. I just wanted to put that out into the ether to talk about it, because I know probably there are a lot of other people out here feeling like this, and they don't have, a term for it. And it's like they keep putting band-aids on it, and the band-aid, they just got to keep putting the band-aid on forever. Which band-aid is being the medicine and, the therapy. And I'm talking about those who have the deep festering trauma that I have. I'm not talking about those, and I'm not saying that, the traumas that aren't as deep as mine aren't valid. They are. But I'm saying that trying to treat the deep traumas that I have as if, it's just tis but a flesh wound. Trying to treat them like that, for those of us who have these deep traumas, it doesn't help. And we need a better approach and better treatment methods. Something that actually heals people and something that actually helps. And that's all. I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me. I couldn't find. Are you going to sleep over here, little girl? My cat going to sleep. Sorry if you couldn't hear me, because I couldn't find my, Now, why are you bothered with your little tail on? She's so silly. I couldn't find my microphone. And I'm sorry about, my mental dysregulation that kind of made me go into brain farts and not be able to, if I didn't fully, execute or express myself, express my feelings enough for you to understand my emotions. I need to come out with something about emotions too, because we're not fucking robots. Excuse me, I am so sorry for cussing. But also I'm not, because we are not robots. We have feelings. We have emotions. You have anger, you have lust or love, you have sadness, remorse, woe, sorrow, and those are, all different definitions of sad. But I feel like they come with each level, with each word, it's a different level of sad, is what I believe. Then you have, joviality, you have happiness, you know, wonder. We can feel wonder, awe. We are biochemical, electrical, magnetic beings. And we just treat ourselves like we're these robots. We treat ourselves like we're NPCs. We treat ourselves like we're AI. Like, you know, like we don't matter. There's no way. I'm tired of people saying, take your emotions out of it. Emotions is how you got here. Literally. So yeah, I'm gonna need to do something about that. Because we need to talk about emotions in a different way. Because it's I understand not being, too sensitive and too emotional. But on the other side of that is you have to also understand you can't be a freaking rock, a stone. You really want your heart to turn into stone, like Pharaoh hardened his heart, and he disobeyed God. He sinned against God, and next thing he knew, he lost his life because of his pride. You really want that? Yeah. So I'm gonna make a video about that too. So 2 more videos update. I'm coming. Yeah. All right. Let me get out of here. Bye, y'all. Say bye, fish.